The WNBA and the league's demise now that Caitlin Clark is no longer going to play this season. The WNBA and the Indiana Fever, Stephanie White, Amber Cox, all the way up and including, let's just keep it real, Kathy Engelbert, Adam Silver, the National Basketball Association, everybody that participated in the
Caitlin Clark's season has officially come to an end, and honestly, the WNBA has no one to blame but itself. Think about it. First, she dealt with a quad strain back in May. Then came the groin issues in June and July, and by August, a bone bruise. Her body practically broke down step by step. For the league, losing Clark isn't just a small setback. It's like watching everything fall apart because of bad officiating, poor management, and the constant physical punishment their top star had to endure.
Out for the remainder of the 2025 season, something we all think we knew was coming after what Stephanie White said earlier today. We couldn't be too sure until we see it for ourselves. And with this announcement from the GOAT's mouth herself, Caitlin Clark won't be returning this season, nor if the Indiana Fever make.
Fans are absolutely livid right now. They're talking about boycotts, demanding refunds, and calling for answers, but the league has stayed mostly silent. How did the reputation of women's basketball collapse after just 13 games? And what has Commissioner Kathy Engelbert even said about it? For most fans, it's nowhere near enough. Time and time again, refs just stood there while Clark got shoved off balance, slammed into screens, or had her jersey yanked, all without a single whistle. That kind of blatant inaction is exactly what's pushing fans over the edge.
All started last year, in her rookie season, where she received 20% of all the flagrant fouls in the league. And most of them came from Angel Reese in the Chicago Sky. And these weren't basketball plays. They were not only fouling her, but they were getting up, laughing about it, laughing about Caitlin Clark getting assaulted. Any other work environment, people go to jail.
Anyone who watched the game live saw it happen over and over again, possession after possession. Before the ball even got to Clark, she was getting double-teamed, shoved into help defense, or completely wiped out by screens. The refs had countless opportunities to call it, but they just kept swallowing their whistles. Eventually, it stopped being a few isolated plays. It was happening so frequently that even major outlets like the Washington Post started covering it.
And all the people that follow the WNBA and try to promote the WNBA don't understand that Caitlin Clark's game resonates with us. I say this every day, and every day I got to deal with somebody else dumb in the media. Caitlin Clark's game resonates because she's got flair, she's got flash, she's got style. I said this before, and I'll say this again. We saw Sue Bird's game. We saw Diana Taurasi's game. Kim Mulkey was Sue Bird before Sue Bird became Sue Bird. We've seen it.
And here's the thing. This wasn't just one overly aggressive team or a random rough matchup. This was happening across the entire league. It felt like everyone was fine with letting the player who had instantly become the face of women's basketball get completely worn down. That's the real issue, isn't it? Caitlin Clark was the reason behind half of the WNBA's surge in viewership. She was her team's brightest star, the league's biggest draw, and yet, she got absolutely no protection on the court.
I noticed how much it was just Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark was taking all the hits. Caitlin Clark was taking all the abuse. But this year they've added Sophie Cunningham. She gets more flagrant fouls on her than anybody in the league besides Caitlin Clark. And Aaliyah Boston, she's been taking hits as well. But the worst thing is the consistency. So they don't call flagrant fouls, or most of the time, Caitlin Clark can be held for an entire game at a time. They don't call fouls. They don't call.
Just think about that for a moment. Caitlin Clark, this one player, should have been treated like the massive investment she clearly was, from Dallas to Vegas, New York to Chicago. Yet even while TV networks were paying record-breaking sums to broadcast her games, the officials couldn't even give her the most basic calls that any other star would automatically get. What fans kept seeing was constant contact, players bumping her off the ball, bodies crashing into her, non-stop hand-checking that completely disrupted her rhythm. All of it would have been a foul for anyone else on the floor.
The NBA, these people that play in the NBA, these people that cover the NBA. There, I said these people, all of you. Black, white, green, purple. Why don't you understand a very simple thing? Her game is dynamic. Like Diana Taurasi was like a jackass to Caitlin Clark. Why? Her game is what people are drawn to. And then you go to the personality. Her game is different than any WNBA woman ever. And she wins, and she shoots from deep. It's no different than Steph Curry. How many times we got...
Listen, this wasn't just frustrating to watch. It was downright dangerous. Those constant cheap shots don't just leave a player sore for a day. They add up over time. Muscles that are already strained eventually give out. So when Clark's quad tightened up in May and her groin started burning in June, that wasn't some random bad luck. Those are textbook results of unprotected landings, awkward pivots from lack of space, and non-stop physical contact. These are the same stressors that lead to long-term injuries, the kind that need real recovery time. But she kept pushing through it anyway, not because she was ready, but because empty arenas full of fans who'd already paid to see her weren't an option. That's exactly why so many people are calling the league out for hypocrisy.
A gut punch that basically encompasses an entire season of them. The Fever have lost so many players to injury, but obviously none bigger than Clark. And there was such a wait for this second season after her magnificent rookie season. And then, the anticipation of her possibly coming back, only for that not to happen, takes a lot of air out of the room, obviously takes a lot of energy out of the fans, and is a devastating blow for not just the Fever.
The WNBA wouldn't stop bragging about record ticket sales, booming merchandise numbers, and all these new sponsorship deals, every single one of them directly linked to Caitlin Clark's name. But when it came to doing the most basic thing, protecting the very player responsible for that surge, the league treated her like she was just another rookie. And let's be real, she was anything but just another rookie.
Two-time All-Star and the 2024 WNBA Rookie of the Year has been sidelined suffering a right groin injury during the Fever's 87-77 win over the Connecticut Sun on July 15th. If you guys remember that game, Caitlin Clark put the team on her back in the winding minutes to give the Indiana Fever that lead. Clark also suffered a bone bruise at a later date during her recovery.
Letting her take that kind of punishment night after night didn't just affect a few games. It jeopardized the stability of the entire season. So here's the real question. What happens when your golden goose suddenly can't play anymore? If the league won't call fouls, what do you think happens when their biggest star is limping instead of leading the fast break? Well, now we've got our answer.
Worked so hard throughout this time, doing everything possible to recover and return to the court, but ultimately, time is not on our side, said Indiana Fever COO and GM Amber Cox. While we wait, while we will continue working with Caitlin and provide her with every resource we have available, there is not enough time left in our season for her to safely return, and her long-term health and well-being remains our top priority. We are looking forward to having her back at full strength to start the 2026 season. Clark appeared in 13 games during the regular season, averaging 16.5 points, 8.8 assists, and 5 rebounds per game, while helping lead the team to the 2025 WNBA Commissioners.
The ref's carelessness didn't just ruin a few box scores, it set the stage for what eventually happened, Clark's collapse at the end of the season. And the fallout didn't stop there. The impact spread far beyond the court, like wildfire.
Caitlin wrote, I had hoped to share a better update, but I will not be returning to play this season. I spent hours in the gym every day with the singular goal of getting back out there. Disappointed isn't a big enough word to describe how I am feeling. I want to thank everyone who had my back through all the uncertainty. This has been incredibly frustrating, but even in the bad, there is good. The way fans continue to show up for me in the Fever brought me so much joy and important perspective. I'm so proud of how this team has only gotten stronger through the adversity this year. Now it's time to close out the season and claim our...
So, was Caitlin Clark's sophomore season doomed from the start? Looking back, it definitely feels that way. She first mentioned feeling tightness in her quad during training camp in May. Normally, most athletes would ease up to prevent further damage, but not her. Instead, she became the centerpiece of every event, media appearance, and marketing push the league could line up. Less than 2 months later, That same quad issue worsened and developed into a serious groin injury. By July, her entire right side was torn up, and then came the news no one wanted to hear. Caitlin Clark's season was over.
Kathy Engelbert and the rest of the WNBA Players Association executive leadership who failed to hold officials and players accountable for the barbaric style of play the Fever and Caitlin Clark have had to endure this year. Kathy
What's really wild is that Clark never even had the chance to fight back. This wasn't just some streak of bad luck, it was a chain of careless decisions. The most frustrating part? She never actually had a stretch where she was fully healthy. She was marked as day-to-day at least 3 separate times, each one brushed off as precautionary. But in the WNBA, precautionary seems to mean a quick patch-up, a bit of treatment, and then right back on the floor by the weekend. Watching Clark out there at half speed, pushing through the pain, was like watching someone trying to sprint on one leg, while being told she was perfectly fine.
Coaches over the last few days have complained without being fine-worthy about officiating. I just want to see about your thoughts on if officiating is an issue and how it can be improved, because clearly there seems to be problems or a disconnect between what players and coaches feel and what officials actually call.
At that point, it's impossible to ignore the sheer mismanagement. Every sports fan knows that if you don't let injuries properly heal, they're only going to get worse. Yet the league kept pushing her, intense defensive drills, back-to-back games, and non-stop cross-country travel. That didn't just risk setbacks, it practically guaranteed them. Even the coaches could see it. Her body language showed pain, her drives lost their explosiveness, and her first step clearly slowed down. Despite all the pressure for her to keep playing, the medical staff had one job: to protect her. And they failed. Completely.
Sports for 60 years now. I know that, no one's ever happy with officiating. All sports deal with it, but we're working hard to make sure we're putting the best product out on the court, and our officiating then can follow.
Fans were thrilled to see her play. Arenas were selling out, road games were marketed entirely around her, and tickets were disappearing fast. But the reality? She wasn't anywhere near ready. It's hard not to feel like the league prioritized money over her long-term health, creating a massive gap between the public hype and the private truth. She had to be out there, to fill seats, drive ratings, and keep the momentum alive. Even with all the warning signs flashing bright red, nobody, and I mean nobody, stopped to slow things down. So this wasn't one unlucky injury. It was a season-long chain of bad decisions that ultimately broke her down. And fans finally got confirmation that something was seriously wrong when Commissioner Engelbert officially spoke about Clark's season-ending injury.
Breanna Stewart, she goes to the line 14 times. Asia Wilson goes to the line 13 times. And Aaliyah Boston can't play 20 minutes in a game without being on the bench in foul trouble. That's another problem that we're dealing with. But like I said, this year, it's not just Caitlin Clark. If you wear that Indiana Fever jersey, consider it done. The refs are not going to be fair, and they are going to cheat and do whatever it takes to do it the higher.
And what did fans get in response? A carefully polished PR statement, full of vague optimism and generic talk about progress. Instead of a commissioner facing what might be the league's biggest health crisis in years, they got spin and deflection. And here's the kicker: not a single word about officiating failures or accountability for how badly Clark was protected. That's what really stung. The same player who brought in record-breaking ratings was now sidelined for months, all because the league refused to step up when it mattered most.